Do you want to be able to aim like this by 2025? Well, don't worry, because I'm going to run you through the fastest and the best way to improve your aim that I've learned in my 15 years of FPS experience. So sit back, relax, and enjoy Shotty's Yap Session, episode 9. Now, if you're wondering who I am or why you should listen to me, I've been playing FPS games for 15 years, I've hit Voltaic Masters twice, I'm grinding up to Grandmaster, and I've coached many of my friends, family, and now subscribers up over the last few years. So let's get right into it. Now first up is level 1, the complete basics. I boiled everything down so that even if you're a controller player, mouse and keyboard, or if you play with your mouth, this first level can benefit you no matter what level you're at and no matter what you're using. So first, what is aim? Aim is just hand-eye coordination for mouse and keyboard, controller, whatever you're using. And honestly, most people overcomplicate how hard aim really is to improve on, and honestly, I think we overestimate how good people really are. Aim takes a surprisingly small amount of time to improve to a very high level and get better than 90% of players. But no matter what, repetitions is king. There's no way that you can improve at any skill if you don't really do the skill. Most people talk about, oh, well, I'm just naturally talented, I'm just this, I'm just that. Natural talent is beaten by repetitions and pure obsession every single time. So if you're really serious about, I want to get better, I want to improve this, you need to be prepared to do whatever it takes. Now, I've learned how to boil it down so you don't have to spend as much time, but if you're not even able to finish a video like this, that all you have to do is listen to it. You don't even need to watch. All you have to do is relax, do something else, and absorb the knowledge. If you can't even do that, you're probably not that serious about aim. And you're going to get beaten by someone who's just more obsessed than you. Someone who just decides, I'm just going to listen. I'm going to do this. I'm going to figure out what I have to do. Or even the people that say, you know what? While I'm listening to him, I'm going to practice. I'm going to spend the time to practice. Because the people that are obsessed are the people that you see at the top. Everyone thinks, oh, they were just born like that. They're just talented. But that's usually not true. Most of those people, maybe they have some talent, maybe they were somewhat talented, but they put in more time. Almost all of them have thousands of hours. They all said, I'm going to do this, I'm going to make this into something, and I'm going to improve. Now, what is great aim? Everyone talks about, oh, well, I'm Voltaic this, and I'm that, but that doesn't always mean you have great aim. Because unfortunately, from my experience, a lot of the Voltaic benchmarks are really centered around tracking, and sometimes tracking doesn't really transfer over to some games. Now, of course, in all games you track, of course, all games you need some semblance of smoothness in your aim and reactivity, but it gets to a level where it's obsessive, it's too much, and it's only niche areas that it'll really benefit you in. I recently started my monthly coaching, and I found that some of the players, they would feel much better in their aim, but when they went to go do Voltaic benchmarks, they couldn't really improve at all. But in game and for other scores, they were way better. It was night and day difference, and they said they could feel completely different when they played. But it proved what I already felt like I knew, that benchmarks aren't really everything, and just because you chase a score, just because you chase a certain rank, doesn't mean you really even improve. You can improve in things like scores by doing something incorrectly. It doesn't always mean you're better or you improved at anything or you did something correctly. Plenty of people ask, why should I get great aim? Or shouldn't I just focus on my game sense? Or shouldn't I focus on this? Or shouldn't I focus on that? But it's just like Blue Lock, if you guys have ever seen it. They said something, and when I first watched it, it was like, yes, somebody else thinks the same way I do, you know? It's all about if I score more goals than you, you know? And of course, for aim training or for aiming, it's like if I kill you more than you kill me. But you get the idea. That's all it's about. Of course, yes, you could do this correctly and this other thing correctly, and you could also improve like that. But the way I see it is, and the way I've experienced it is, if I just aim better than you, if I just click your head before you click mine, I usually win more. And if I think of it as, well, I dropped 50 kills and my teammates threw me, I don't improve. Instead, if I think of it as, I dropped 50 kills, but I could have dropped 70 kills. I should have done this right. I should have done that right. I'll improve faster. And it keeps my fate in my hands. It doesn't keep it in the hands of randoms that I meet. I can think of it as, I should have aim trained more. I should have practiced more. I should have done this more. And that framework helps you improve. That framework helps you get better quicker, because instead of having the victim mentality of, it was somebody else's fault, instead if you say, it's my fault, I did it wrong, you'll improve more. Now, of course, some people say, it's unhealthy, it's this, it's that. Who cares? I'm sorry. I don't really care about stuff like that, because it's my life. I gotta handle it how I have to handle it. And if you give other people the power over your life by saying it's their fault, you can't improve. You know, it's not just for aim this is true for. This is for everything. Now, when you're deciding to start, I want to get better aim, I want to improve, I want to get better at video games, I want to get better at whatever, you have to sit there and decide, what is my goal? Because your goal completely decides on how you'll do everything. If you decide, I want to get better at this one game, you have to decide, decide how you have to go about that. Now, let's say I want to get only better at Valorant. I would spend most of my time playing Valorant, and I would play Valorant and figure out what my weaknesses are. If I know there's a weakness in my aim, or if I know there's a weakness in my movement, I would spend time on the game to focus on my movements, and then I would supplement with an aim trainer to focus on that part of my aim I know is bad. And there's so many maps out there nowadays that you can always find a map that correlates to what your issue is. And we're getting better and better. There's tons of new maps coming out every single day. And we're just making tons of improvement in the aim community, so there'll always be something new that you can try out, that you can learn, that you can practice with. So if your goal is, if I want fundamental aim improvement, there's a completely different path I would have to take than if I want to get better at this game. So you have to decide, do you want to get better at aim, or do you want to get better at a game? If you want better aim, period, you need to practice aim. You need to play aim trainers. You need to go up in aim labs. You need to go in Kovacs. If you want to get better at a game, you have to say, I have to play the game more. I have to find more time to play the game. And I need to still supplement with my aim because I know my aim is part of the game. Now that I've given you a little bit of a speech, when you're starting to improve, what do you do? How do you start? What should you do? Now, the first thing that I'm extremely guilty of is something that a lot of people do. We want to stroke our egos. We want to make ourselves feel better. So instead of, when we practice, focusing on the stuff we know we suck at, we all play, I like this map. This is my favorite map. Wow, I have such a good high score on this map. And it's stupid because it's like, does that make sense? If you know that you're the best at this certain type of skill or this certain skill, why on earth would you keep practicing that one when you know you're the worst at this other skill? Sometimes we need to accept that we're gonna have to be bad. We're gonna have to accept that it's okay to suck, you know? We need to miss shots. We need to do bad because our bodies improve when we're sucking. Pause. But it's important. It's a very important thing to focus on what we're bad at. And too many people decide to stroke their egos instead of focusing on how to improve or focus on what they're doing wrong. Now, speaking of that, what if you are improving, or how do you know that you're improving? Because unfortunately, scores can increase and you can play better and you can get more kills while still doing something wrong. It doesn't mean you're doing it right. And that's unfortunate because it's like sometimes we need that guidance. Sometimes we don't know, well, how do I know I'm doing this right? How should I go about this? How should I figure this out? One good thing I like to do is I consume content on other people. This is also why I made this channel, because I'm able to teach people what I've done. Almost everything I do, I market it as my way. Not the best way, not the perfect way. Almost everything is my way, or how I did it. I think everyone should learn from other people because there's only one way to figure out what works for you or what is the quote-unquote best for you. So what I do personally is I consume content. I consume YouTube videos. I could watch VODs. I could watch my own VODs. I can look over other people to see what they do and almost imitate it. I have to sit there, okay, well, Matty Overwatch, he flicks like this and then he does this little thing and then he does this, and I try to imitate it in my gameplay. And it's important to be able to do that. It's important to be able to do that. It's important to be able to look over other people's work or other people's training and see what they do and why they do it. And it's helpful whenever people do also explain it, because unfortunately, just because a number goes up doesn't mean you're better. Now, one quote-unquote secret that you can use that I've used on console, I used on PC, and honestly, now that I'm part of the aim community, I hear that plenty of people talk about it on this too, and it's sensitivity manipulation. Now, what do I mean? Your sensitivity should be different, usually based on what game you play. There is no perfect sensitivity. There's no harm in changing your sensitivity. And when I used to play on console, what I would do is I knew that all those guys that played on the 10 sensitivity, which was max for a lot of games, all those guys were able to do some crazy stuff. They were flicking around, jumping around, but I was stuck on my like 6 sensitivity because it was controllable. I felt I could be more precise with it. But one of my friends, and we both talked about it, we both did it, we said, you know what? Let me try that. All the best players that use this sensitivity, they're all insane. They all do this crazy stuff, and they're able to play good on all the sensitivities that are even below that. Why is that? Maybe there's something there, you know? So we bumped up our sensitivity to a 10. We played on it and suffered. Oh my God, did we suffer. But by a month's time, by a few weeks' time, we were completely new players. We went back to our old sensitivity and it felt like the easiest thing on earth. We felt like we could click heads like it was nothing. And then when I started going into the aim community, I started doing aim training on PC, I found that people manipulated their sensitivity to focus on weak points or to improve themselves or to make things harder or to create artificial difficulty. And it's so funny because I've been doing it for years. I didn't even realize I was doing it. And you can start doing it at home now. If you're bad at a game or if you have a certain weakness in a game, bump your sensitivity up, suffer, play quick play practice, do whatever you have to do, and suffer. Because if you suffer, you will improve. When was the last time you did something hard? Have you ever worked out? Have you ever done a push-up? And the first time you did a push-up, you can only do maybe one, and then you fell on the floor. Then 2 days later, you're like, let me do it again. Then you could do 2. Then you could do 3. Then you were up to 10 in no time. It's the same thing with aim. If you're suffering, your body will say, I really hate this feeling, and I need to change it because this is causing a mental tax on me. This is causing a physical tax. So your body needs to be able to say, well, I hate this tax on my body, so I'm going to fix it. I'm going to adapt to whatever the problem is, and I'm going to get better. And that's what happens. Our body is really smart. It's just a lot of the time, people play in comfortable positions, so their body never adapts. Have you ever looked at someone that's trying to improve and that couldn't, and they were actually doing stuff right? Usually no. Most of the people that I've seen that are trying to improve and actually trying, not, oh, I'm going to try, and then they go to the gym one time, or they do something that they're supposed to do one time, and then the next week they say, well, I tried. No, you didn't. You didn't try. That's not trying. Most people that actually try something and seriously try it, they do it. Because we fed ourselves the lie that trying is doing something for 2 weeks and giving up. It's not true. Trying is really trying. You wake up and you say, I'm gonna do this because I said I'm gonna do it, because I have to do it. And you do it again, and you do it again, and you do it even when it's not working. You're gonna keep doing it because you know you have to do it, and because you know there will be a payout in the future. Not because, oh, let me do this one time and then come on. You know that's not trying. Now, speaking of trying and speaking of practicing, when you practice, I've found that too many people can't translate their practice into real games. And it's like, why is that? And there's a few reasons why I found that is. One of them, when you practice, you play in perfect conditions. You guys are sitting there, either music on or dead silent, try-harding, focusing. You're looking at, how's my grip? How's this? How's that? Let me focus on this. And you're sitting there looking for the most ideal conditions. You're trying to play perfectly. But do you even think about any of that in a real match? Seriously, do you sit there and play and say, let me get my perfect grip. Let me get my perfect posture. No, you don't. No, you don't. You don't go in a real match and say, let me focus on this. Let me make this perfect. You're lying. Come on. So instead of focusing on perfect conditions and worrying about all that, I like to practice in suboptimal conditions. And also, I think of practice differently than some people do. You should think of practice as raising your baseline. And what I mean is, when I first started aim training and I was a diamond in Voltaic, I wasn't diamond in real games. I wasn't aiming diamond level. I brought my baseline probably to gold, probably to platinum, and that was my new skill floor. People need to think about training as raising your skill floor. Yes, your skill ceiling goes up. And if you don't know what I mean is, skill floor is the lowest level of your skill. Skill ceiling is the highest level of your skill. When you hit high scores and when you hit benchmarks, that's showing off your skill ceiling. Your skill floor is what you play like on a terrible day. If you woke up, you got 2 hours of sleep and you're dying, that's what level your skill floor is at. And the whole goal in my eyes of aim training and practicing is raising that skill floor so that when I'm playing terrible, I'm still playing better than 90% of players. It's not about you hit this certain rank and you expect to always play at that rank, because you're not going to. Everyone's going to have bad days. But if you've trained yourself to a level that your skill level is your skill floor is so high that you're playing better than 95% of players on your bad day, that's your entire goal when you're aim training or practicing. That's what you should be aiming for. That's what you should be looking for. And when you practice, you need to understand you don't want perfect conditions. Practicing should be in suboptimal conditions, in my opinion, because in real games, when do you get perfect conditions? There's no point in training like everything's going to be perfect, because it's never going to be perfect. So what I do, and what I hope you're doing right now, is I watch YouTube videos. I watch a video, I put something on, maybe like an hour long, maybe 20 minutes, and I keep it on autoplay, and I'm listening to the video. I'm still focusing on the video to a certain extent while I practice, because it forces me to have my mind scattered so that I'm not fully dialed in on my aim. I'm not fully practicing on that specific part, and it makes it so that I can raise the level I perform at in suboptimal conditions. And it more accurately translates into real games. Also, speaking of doing things while you aim train, I found that music, and actually a lot of people in my comments have agreed with me on this, that music almost helps you. And what I mean is, there was a study way back about someone who was studying something for a test, and they listened to a certain kind of music. And that music was played again when they were trying to take the test, and it helped them recollect the information that they studied. It's almost like, have you ever as a child, you smell something, and then when you get older, you smell it again, and it almost gives you a nostalgic nostalgic feeling. I don't understand fully the brain chemistry of it. I haven't really looked into it, but I do believe there's something there. There's something that you create that association in your brain, and it helps you. It helps you recollect. And that's also why I believe most people should have some kind of playlist or something they listen to as a try-hard playlist, because I do genuinely believe it helps you recollect your practice and helps you play better and helps you get into a flow state as well. Now, I don't say, stop the presses, it's Patrick over here. I'm saying you could try it, okay? It's not game breaking. It's not the end of the world. It's not, let me drop everything, let me go do this. Give it a shot. It doesn't hurt. I mean, you just listen to music. Now, speaking of neuroscience and brain chemistry, it's important to try and practice closer to bedtime. Now, I'm not saying only practice closer to bedtime. You can do 2 practices a day, 3 practices a day. But if you're crunched for time and you want to get the most bang for your buck, practice near bed. And the reason why is when our body starts to make connections in our brain, it's when we're sleeping. So our body's able to recollect what we're supposed to be learning if it was closer to bed. And I actually found this. What I would do is I would aim train. And sometimes it would be really depressing because I'd feel like a super loser because I would dream about aim train. I'm dreaming, yeah, I'm gonna hit that high score. It's dorky stuff, I understand. But it did help. I've noticed quicker improvement when doing that. And actually someone on my video commented in the balisong community, they tell you when you learn a new trick, when you successfully do it, go to sleep. The next day, you'll be able to do it better. And honestly, it makes sense. It's the way our body works. If you're skeptical, just give it a shot. Try it out. What's the harm in it, you know? Worst case scenario, it does nothing. Best case scenario, you get better gains. Now, 2 more things that you can do that will really change the way you play and your overall performance in game. One thing is you need to start doing something before you play video games. Too many people just say, let me wake up, let me get to it and just play. But if you've ever done it, if you ever worked out first, or if you ever went for a jog and in general got your blood pumping first, you know that playing video games feels completely different compared to when you do it straight after waking up. And it's a really big, like, it's a night and day difference. And I'm not saying go be David Goggins, go run 18 miles and then go grind for 16 hours playing video games. I'm saying just do something. Go for a quick walk, get some sunlight, go for a jog. And if you don't know about your circadian rhythm and things like that, in general, our body operates on a clock. And if you get sunlight in the morning and then you have very low blue light in the afternoon and nighttime, your body will almost train itself to wake up at certain times, be alert at certain times, go to sleep at certain times. But if you sit there and you get no sunlight, or if you drown yourself in blue light with your computer screen at midnight, you're going to ruin that clock, and your overall performance in life, in video games, and everything will be worse. So it's a simple step, but it's a very important one. Just at least every morning, get 5 minutes of sunlight. Every morning, at least before the first hour of you waking up, just get some sunlight. You don't have to go do anything crazy, just get something. And the other thing is, when you're practicing, don't go crazy. Rest days are just as important, if not more important, than the days that you're grinding. So make sure that you get some rest days. The routine that I recommend for most people, and the one that I employ myself in my coaching and in my own life, I do about 3 days of doing basic fundamental practice. I do like 2 days of weakness practice, and then the other 2 days I either spend resting or I spend it benchmarking myself, which is very low intensity, so I don't have to worry about it too much. And I'll spread that out. Maybe somewhere in the middle is one rest day and somewhere in the end is another rest day, and it gives me time to recuperate. It gives me time to warm up. It gives me time to practice. Now, another thing that not many people talk about is aim is just hand-eye coordination. So why don't we train the eye portion? Now, to train my eyes, I focus on these 2 YouTube videos. The first one is purely for eye stretches. I do these eye stretches almost every morning because they help me feel more alert, and I've noticed it's actually helped my vision in the past. And as for the other YouTube video, this video I use just to track targets with my eyes, to get myself used to syncing up my eyes and my aim. After a few days of watching this video, I focus on also keeping my mouse on the targets while I track them with my eyes. And if you don't know how you should position when you do this, I recommend you sit exactly where you do when you play video games. And by the way, this still works if you play on console. Training your eyes is completely universal. And then I sit exactly where I play when I'm playing the game, and I track the target with my eyes over and over and over. Then I also, when I get more advanced, I start tracking it with my mouse. And you can do this with your controller joystick. If you're watching the video on your Xbox TV, you can sit there and track it with your joystick, and you keep tracking and tracking it, and it helps you sync up your eyes and your aim. And speaking of using your eyes, people talk a lot about the target versus crosshair debate. My personal opinion on it is, and this has worked for many people I know, when the target is far away, look at the crosshair, and when the target is close, look at the target. Now, the reason why I say this is because I think about it as a telescope. If you're you're looking through a telescope, the person at the end of the telescope looks like they're moving all slow and they're tiny, but if someone walks right in front of the telescope and walks by, it looks like they're moving at light speed. And you can think about your crosshair as a telescope or a focal point, a tiny point that you look through. And if you focus on that tiny point, everything far or at the end of that tiny point moves slowly, and everything close to it moves quickly, because it's all a matter of perspective of where you're looking. Now, of course, experiment with it. Not everything you hear should be taken as gospel, but you should try it out and maybe it works for you. Also, sometimes I supplement with this video, which is about hand stretches, hand workouts, and things like that. That'll help your wrist, it'll help your thumbs, it'll help every part of your hand that you'll be using when you aim. So if you guys want to check that out, I'll have it in my Discord and I'll have it in the description. Now, before we get to level 2, which is the training level, where we're going to talk about aim training, practicing, and how to practice, this is probably about the halfway point of the video. So if you've ever watched this before, you know this is the middle of the yap. And as always, what I do in the middle of the yap is I thank you guys. Thank you so much for watching my videos. Thank you so much for enjoying my content. I've been working on thinking of new ideas that I could really help you guys with and really talk to you guys about, but it's been kind of hard because it's like, how do I say it in a way that you guys will enjoy? You know what I mean? Or how do I say it where it's more accessible to everyone? Because a lot of people, they see me aim training on Kovacs and they just kind of leave. Like, oh, well, I don't feel like using Kovacs. I don't feel like buying it. I don't feel like aim training. So I made sure to set this up in a way that it helps everybody. It can help anyone. Anyone can learn anything. And it's really down to the basics at first. Now, if you guys do enjoy this video, please support me by leaving a comment down below. And if you guys don't know what kind of comment to leave, you guys can also help give me ideas for my new son. I recently saved him. He was a stray cat and I started taking care of him. So I'm raising him now. He's my little son. He's actually screaming in the background right now because he wants to go up by the window with his sisters. So help me get some name ideas for him, please. And if you don't want to comment, leave me a like, or if you like this type of content, subscribe. Anyways, I love you guys so much, and this is so awesome. I even started doing my paid coaching recently, which, if you don't know where that is, I have a huge video that literally just says, watch this for my coaching. And I started coaching recently and it's going great, dude. Everyone's getting pretty good progress. I'm really happy about it. And honestly, I got a few really cool people that are in my coaching too. So far, I really like the types of people I got. Anyways, I love you guys. Let's get back to the video. Now into level 2. Training. Now, a lot of people really overcomplicate aim training and practicing. It's actually really easy to get better than most people because most people don't even train their aim, or most people have such weaknesses that they don't even think about or care to think about. But we've forgotten this because we all hang out around better players, or we hang around aim trainer players, and we think that this is normal. We think this is the baseline, when the baseline is much lower than what you think. So first things first, if you're using a mouse, the basic guideline that I like to give to people about how to grip their mouse is have your pinky and your thumb in line with the mouse sensor. This allows it so you can have much more in sync movements with your hand and your mouse. And it also might be the reason why sometimes if you move left to right with your mouse, it doesn't actually go perfectly straight. It might be diagonal, or it might be slightly up, or it might be slightly down. And this is usually the reason why, because people don't realize that their mouse and their hand isn't really synced up properly, or the way they hold their mouse isn't really straight, so you can't really make straight lines unless you compensate. Now, on top of that, if you're going to use a mouse, make sure your arm isn't floating. You should have some point of your arm in contact with the mouse pad, or just in general your table. Now, there are different advantages based on how you place it. Like if you keep your arm all the way down and flat, you're more stable. If you keep your wrist floating a little bit, you have more ability to move quicker and make farther movements. There's a lot of different nuances to it, but a general rule is just keep something touching. And also don't use only your wrist. You will destroy them. I know because I've ruined mine. And if it wasn't for me working out a lot and doing lots of push-ups to strengthen my wrists, I would have been doomed. I would have had carpal tunnel. I would have terrible wrists. And by the time I was 60, I'd have been completely crippled. So make sure you don't do that. Now, when you're aiming, you need to be able to use your entirety of your arm and your wrist. A lot of people either use only their arm or they use only their wrist. So how do you fix that? First, if you want to use your arm more, you need to lower your sensitivity. Too many people have sensitivities that are so high they don't need to use their arm. So if you want to practice with that, you need to learn how to use your arm. So you have to play maps or practices that require a lot of movement. And if you don't have like an aim trainer to use, if you don't have something that you can use that'll do that for you, I personally recommend you drop your sensitivity really low because it'll force you to use more of your body to aim. Now, the same is also true for the wrist. If you use too much of your arm and you never use your wrist, raise your sensitivity, because then your sensitivity is so fast. If you're using only your arm, you're going to overcorrect everything. Now, there are some maps that I've recommended people to use only their wrist or only their arm, but the hardest thing I've noticed for many people is using them both. And I try not to overcomplicate it. You want to make sure you use your arm for really big movements, and at the same time, that arm won't be able to make the really precise movements, so you should be moving your wrist and your fingertips to sort of micro adjust. You're not thinking about your wrist as the huge movement maker. You're thinking about your wrist as the finisher. Your wrist just finishes what you're doing. Your arm starts it and gets you where you need to be, and your wrist finishes it for you. But also, when people start to use them in conjunction, they don't realize that they start shaking. They start having impurities in their aim. And what I mean is, when you're aiming, you need to learn how to convert a far, fast flick into a smooth movement. And an example of this is, have you ever been caught off guard in a real game, and then someone peeks you, and you flick over, you're almost on the head, but then you start vibrating, you start shaking, or you start choking right before you have to make the shot. You made such a perfect movement, you did so well, and then you mess it up in the end. And that's because you're not able to convert a fast movement into a smooth movement. A lot of people, if they do something fast, they stay fast or stay shaky, and they don't have that control to say, flick, slow down, flick, slow down. And you need to be able to learn that. You need to be able to spend time on that, because that happens a lot. And it looks cooler. How many times have you seen someone clutch and they flick and then one tap somebody? That looks awesome. And you're like, yeah, I want to do that. And it feels good to be able to do it, and it's not really as complicated as you might think. Sometimes, of course, it's luck. Sometimes the guy just got a lucky shot off. But other times, it is skill to it. And that's why people like Tens are able to just say, flick bang, because he's able to convert that speed into smoothness afterwards. Because a lot of people believe, if I'm fast, I sacrifice it for smoothness and control. If I'm slow, I sacrifice it for speed. But that's not always true. You can have both. You just have to train both, and you have to be able to train the conversion of both. It's not complicated. It's not a secret sauce. You have to know this to do it. It's just the ability to make a conscious effort to do it and then practicing it. What I like to do is I like to do tracking maps. Tracking maps like Fugala XYZ. That's why I preach it so much. Because Fugala, when it blinks, you have to make that flick and then be smooth and follow the motions. Because if you don't, you're going to look like you're having a stroke on the target, which plenty of people do. They're sitting there like, I can't keep up. It's moving so fast. But it's not. It's really not. Now, speaking of Fugala XYZ and different maps, I firmly believe to build your own perfect playlist, you don't need to overcomplicate it. You should have one group in your playlist for fundamentals or warm-up, one for precision and clicking, one for tracking, and one for switching. What I like to do is I take maps like Smooth Your Wrist or Anti-Centering or Far Angle Smoothness. All three of these maps, by the way, in Kovacs, they all sit there and they're perfect for a warm-up. And they teach you something called speed matching. Speed matching is a big issue a lot of people have, and you might have had it. It's where you're tracking something and you know it's not moving fast or it's not changing speed, but you just can't keep up with it. You're tracking behind it or you're tracking in front of it, and it's not really your fault. It's something that you have to train. So I make sure that all of my playlists and all the playlists I give out to people have those maps in it or something like those maps in it, because it's not something you can cheat. It will always take the same amount of time to improve at. It's not like a technique issue. It's something that you just haven't learned that skill yet. So after you have those maps or maps like it at the start of your playlist, you want to add something that's more precision. Or what I like to do is tracking first, because tracking warms me up for the rest of my aim. So I do something like Fugala XYZ or any type of air tracking target. So a target that moves in the air and moves quickly and does sporadic reactive movements. Now I do Fugala XYZ because it is reactivity where you have to react to the way it changes directions, but it's also smoothness because a lot of times it doesn't move as fast as people think, and you just have to make that smooth, squiggly line following it. The other map I do is something that's a ground target that you have to track. Usually something similar that's reactive but also smoothness. So something like Ground Plaza or Track Stop and things like that. Those two maps, what they do is you're able to track them and you follow it and you follow the small reactions it makes, and you have to be able to flick when it changes direction or quickly change direction and then smooth out your aim and follow it. And you want to be able to train not overreacting to it. You don't want to sit there, flick to it, flick back, flick, 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 flick. Try and stay on target. You want to be able to train the fine motor movements of following the target. By the way, if you're ever curious about these maps, there's tons of videos on my channels about it, and I'll release a playlist of my own in the description that you can just look up different versions of the map and change it for yourself. So you won't have to memorize all these maps. Just download the playlist and you'll see plenty of them in one playlist. Or join my Discord. Everyone's pretty active there, and I have a huge resources tab that has tons of different maps and tons of different things you can use, especially if you're new. Now, once I do the tracking maps, I add something with precision. precision. Precision, usually I don't like doing static targets. And also I'm starting to create my own little running theory about one wall, one target maps. And the reason why is I think about it like this. One target completely develops the finest motor movements of react, click, react, click, react, click. And I think it might be better than any other map for aim training. And if you think about it, almost every other map is one target, except for like switching. And honestly, I think switching could benefit from doing one target too. Because in tracking, you just have one target to focus on. There's no predicting in it, there's no nothing. You have to sit there and react to it and figure it out. But we don't do that for clicking. For clicking, we allow ourselves to path and to plot out which way we're going to aim. And I think it creates another level of skill, but it also creates a level of prediction that doesn't train what we're actually looking to train. So right now, I'm not suggesting do one wall, one target maps because I haven't really fully developed my theory on it and tested it myself, but it is something to think about. And what I do instead is I do vibrate maps that are close together. So VBR maps, things like that. And I'll probably show some on screen now. And I do shimmy maps. If you know who Shimmy is, he's a clicker main. He likes doing precision maps. He does hip fire and all that. I actually like some of his maps a lot because I like clicking. And he has a map called Shim Hip Fire. Personally, I use that one now a lot because it trains you to be able to do big targets, then smaller, then smaller, then smaller, then smaller. And hip fire, in my opinion, is one of the best maps for aim, or at least aim converting into real games personally, especially hipfire extra small. Hipfire extra small, if you've ever watched my channel, I preach a ton because I firmly believe it's an amazing map. And it builds good technique because extra small makes it so you have to click when you're on target. So you learn hit confirmation because you're forcing yourself to look at the target and the crosshair, line them up and click at the right time. And it trains good habits where you train yourself not to miss. So I usually do a hip fire map, whether that be shim hip fire, pokeball extra small, maps like that. And I do a pokeball map where I hold down left click the entire time. Now, a lot of people I see, they hold it only when they're on target. I don't do that, and the reason why is I like killing two birds with one stone. I believe that when you hold left click the whole time, you can focus on your tension management as well as your precision. So you can hold down left click and you can focus on, let me make this wide flick and let me also control the tension in my hand where I slow myself down enough, but I don't also squeeze so much that I'm crushing my mouse and I can't make fine adjustments. And it creates a balance between the two and it helps you learn that. And then for the final one, switching. I used to really not like switching maps, but now I started doing smaller switching maps like the ones that I'm showing on screen here. And those maps, they still train the skill of switching, but they're not FOV based, if you know what I mean. A lot of switching maps doesn't really train the skill of switching. It trains the skill of switching and you guessing correctly on where the bot is, or you raising your FOV so much that you can see everything, which I don't like doing that. I like being able to just train the skill I want to train. So you can also add these maps into your playlist, and all of these maps you can change the skill level for. Almost all of them have an easy version and this version, that version, and that's about 2 maps for each kind of category that will completely transform your aim. And that's going to lead us into level 3. What if you're already at a baseline of aim and you just want to reach the next level? You don't want to be above average. You don't want to be just top 90%. You want to be top 1%. Well, for you guys, and I know there's a few of you, if you're trying to reach the best of the best, unfortunately, a lot of it is self-reflection and time. And what I mean is, when I made my second climb to Masters, I only did it in about a month. And that was from Plat. I was Plat at the start of the month. And I was terrible. I was barely aim training too. I did it I think I hit Jade in 6 days. I have it written down somewhere. Maybe I'll show the photo. But I hit Jade in 6 days. And the only difference each time I improved a rank, all I did was, let me play this map, let me play this map, let me play this. What am I doing wrong? Okay, I'm not moving my arm when I aim. Okay, whenever I see this target, I shake a lot. Or when I was doing switching maps, I would switch and then the bot would make really basic movements, but I couldn't keep up. So maybe I couldn't convert my aim. Maybe I couldn't track. And I would look over my own gameplay, or while I was playing, I'd think about it and I'd say, what am I doing wrong? And unfortunately, a lot of people don't want to do this because it's that's a lot of work. It's also why people pay for coaching. Why should I sit there and suffer thinking through all this when I can have someone else do it for me? But if you really want to reach that top level, you either have to hire a coach or you have to be able to look over your own gameplay and figure out what's wrong. And what I did was, and if you've ever seen it, I created my GM playlist and my Masters playlist. And all the playlists that I made, they were all same framework. A basic fundamental part of the playlist, which was smooth your wrist, anti-centering, things like that. Then a big issue of mine, which was tracking, specifically air tracking. So Fugala XYZ, I did like Grandmaster. And then I found out what other issues I had, which was maybe speed. And I added maps that were speed focused. Then, and this part is a big secret that I love, and it's not really a secret if you've watched my videos, I set a baseline of score. And after I set that baseline, when I've really peaked out and I can't get any higher and I'm plateaued and I know I'm just like, I can't get any better, it's pissing me off, I play really hard maps that I've set a certain level of score on, and I switch my sensitivity. Now, what I personally did, I went up to a 7 in Overwatch at 800 DPI, and my main is normally a 3.2 to a 4.3. That range is usually what I main. So a 6 or a 7 was too fast for me. So I went to that too fast sensitivity, and I sucked every single day. Pause. And I just kept doing it. I kept playing on the maps that I suffered on. And then when I started reaching that baseline I was already at before, I changed the sensitivity again. Higher. This time 8. And I would keep increasing it and keep suffering and keep pushing the sensitivity range that I was good at. And this made it so that when I went back to my main sensitivity, it felt too easy. And I broke every single one of my plateaus like that. And I don't think there's anything more to it. I don't think there's something special you can do. Every bit of aim is figure out what you suck at, push yourself, fix it, do it again. So I'm sorry if level 3 was a little lackluster, but that's all it is. And that's all you really have to do. There is no secret sauce to aim. Aim is just like any other skill. Figure out what you suck at, fix it, work on it, spend time, and keep improving. Anyways, if you are one of the people that you just don't feel like looking over your own gameplay and figuring out where you're stuck at, I have coaching now. So if you want to join my coaching, click on this video. And if you enjoyed this Yap session, check out some of the other ones over here. Have a good one, everyone. I love you guys, and God bless you.